Good day, Four Corners. I'm Kendra Cook, your host for the DCTV Daily News program out of Dove Creek, Colorado, brought to you by the Dolores County Broadcasting Network with support from the Southwest Colorado TV Translator Association. That's the Special District Association responsible for bringing the area free-to-access TV stations over the air by antenna. This is a community TV station, so if there's a news story or event information that you would like to share, call us at 970-677-4119. And if you're a business or organization or an individual, we welcome you to find out about sponsorship opportunities for banners or video segments run on the channel. This is the Thursday program for January 7th, 2021, DCTV Daily News. Wednesday, January 6th, 2021, as earlier reported here on DCTV, to be an historic day in American history, as it was the last opportunity for our elected governmental officials in Washington, D.C. to address the immense amount of concerns and questions over the election vote counting process in America in general, and specifically several states where violations are said to have blatantly occurred. Hundreds of thousands of Americans were and no doubt still remain angry and disenfranchised in the wake of governmental disregard for taking the time to look at the facts and affidavits surrounding the recent election process in a just and fair, transparent manner. It is felt by millions that truly the Constitution itself is at risk of being disregarded or worse, and that there is and will be no civil recourse, which means that the basis of our country's government could be irreversibly changed with the incoming officials in the position of power and their connections to foreign influences and ideologies. The concept of the elected officials working for us, the masses, the citizenry, that the Capitol building is the building of the people, is potentially, and through a known and admitted global agenda, being deconstructed in front of our very eyes. To stay silent is to give tacit consent. To stand up and express your opinion, well, that used to be a core respected value of our First Amendment rights and the right to peaceful assembly. The 1-6 protest was a perfect demonstration of democracy in action, peaceful assembly by the far-reaching majority of those who attended from across the country and, in fact, from around the world. This concern over election processes and First Amendment and other Bill of Rights are not about Mr. Trump. This extends far beyond Mr. Biden or any individual in the spotlight. This is a worldwide issue where citizens across the world are protesting what is happening to bring down the way of life in first world countries to an equal playing field of all societies becoming third world nations and under a global government. Yesterday's murder of veteran Ashley Babbitt, as she was unarmed inside the Capitol, was just one of the tragic results of both rogue individuals trespassing and the possibility of infiltrators and agitators in the crowd, and the police force overreacting with aggression. There are now reports of 3 additional deaths that may have happened at the Capitol yesterday. But there were no fires set, as happened across the nation last summer with Antifa and BLM groups protesting, without a single consequence for their brutal rioting, which included the point-blank murder during a protest in Denver. Does everyone still remember all that happening in 2020 leading up to this? Across the U.S., patriots who do not have confidence in the electoral process and lack of transparency marched peacefully. The Denverite reported hundreds of pro-Trump supporters descended on the Colorado State Capitol on Wednesday for a rally disputing the results of the 2020 election as Congress held their joint session confirming the election's results. A rally called, quote, "We Are the Storm," was slated to begin at noon, but hundreds of people showed up beforehand, waving U.S. and blue Trump flags and wearing Make America Great Again hats. Around 2 p.m., Mayor Michael Hancock estimated the crowd had grown to 700 people, and he said he was closing all city buildings out of, quote, "an abundance of caution." The event in Denver remained largely peaceful through 2 p.m. KJCT News out of Grand Junction reported a participant in their local protest as stating, quote, "Well, we're just concerned about the election process." That was Marcher and Mesa County resident Michael McFarland. They reported that 14 days before Joe Biden is set to be inaugurated as the next president of the United States, Mesa County Trump supporters gathered for the, quote, "Stop the Steal March" on Main Street in Grand Junction. Quote, "Although I am a Trump supporter, I'm more concerned really about the process and the integrity of it, and we've just watched all the discrepancies and the different things that have gone on, and I just feel like we need to see the process fixed," said McFarland. Approximately 250 people gathered with signs stating, quote, "Stand for the Constitution" and "Save our Republic." Here in Dove Creek, a core group of proud Americans rallied on Main at noon for several passes of driving through town with American flags waving in support of our republic and the justice of a fair electoral process. In the wake of the congressional and senatorial objections, no investigation or further review of the process will commence. The simple message this morning across platforms where speech has not been restricted, as in Twitter banning the lawfully elected current president of the United States from free speech, is that the electoral votes have been confirmed to place Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as the next president and vice president of whatever is left of the United States as we have known it. And that's the report as of January 7th, 2021. And now let's take a look at the local weather ahead. Today, sunny with a high near 40 degrees with calm winds on the day. Tonight, mostly clear and a low around 19 degrees with light northeast winds. Into Friday, increasing clouds with a high near 39 degrees. And Friday night, mostly cloudy and a low around 20. At this point, that potential earlier listed for snow on Saturday is no longer in the forecast. So we're looking to a partly sunny day and colder with a high just near 33 degrees. North-northwest winds at 5 to 15 miles an hour and gusts as high as 25. That'll make it a blustery cold start to the weekend. For Saturday night, mostly clear and a low around 15. Again, for Sunday, sunny, cold with a high near 34. Sunday night, mostly clear and a low around 16. And a similar pattern of dry, mildly cold weather extends into next week, with Monday sunny and a high near 36. Monday night, mostly clear and a low around 16. For Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 39. Tuesday night, partly cloudy and a low around 19. And now, back to our news. Through Dove Creek, Highway 491 is said to have upwards of 15,000 vehicles pass through daily on average. And if you've been noticing, there are more and more U-Hauls coming through town. Well, that's not your imagination, according to a report in the Chieftain. Despite the coronavirus pandemic, business is booming for the U-Haul Company of Southern Colorado, as local U-Haul truck demand mirrors what the state of Colorado is experiencing. According to U-Haul data analyzing migration patterns in 2020, Colorado ranked number 6 among states for growth. Quote, Colorado is the biggest mover of any state on the list, catapulting 36 spots from its number 42 growth ranking of 2019, said Andrea Batchelor, U-Haul spokesperson. People coming to Colorado in one-way U-Haul trucks increased more than 3% during the past year, while departures dropped by more than 1% from 2019. U-Haul Company of Southern Colorado President Dave Helmers has served in his role for 7 years and has seen the boom in Southern Colorado during the past 5 years. Quote, with telecommuting, everything is so different, Helmers said. People are going where they want to be. They can work and live where they have and can have fun, go boating or hiking, and Southern Colorado offers all of that. And if you have broadband, there's the help. The growth in Colorado is undeniable, he said. It is happening all up and down the Front Range. People are moving to places like Steamboat Springs because they want to be someplace beautiful and fun, and they can work from home anywhere, Helmers said. Colorado's leading growth cities are Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, Pueblo, Grand Junction, Boulder, Steamboat Springs, and Loveland. Reported in TheDrive.com. How the once elusive dream of laser weapons suddenly became a reality. One of Lockheed Martin's top-directed energy minds explains how breakthroughs in communications and industrial tech made laser weapons possible. And they report that after decades of toiling and dead ends, the dream of operational laser weaponry is about to become a reality. So what changed that made what has been a bulky system go from clumsy pipe dreams to hardened, miniaturized, and reliable weapons that will be able to be deployed even in the harshest of conditions? In an in-depth interview with Dr. Rob Afzal, Lockheed Martin Senior Fellow in Laser and Sensor Systems, he expressed that technological developments have made the dawn of laser warfare possible. Quote, if you think back that the laser is actually invented in roughly 1960, so it begs the question, that's 50 years. Why aren't there laser weapons all over the place today? There are really two reasons for that. The first reason is that the initial application they envisioned for the laser weapons is for strategic defense mission. Really, the hardest, most difficult technologically mission that there is, defending the homeland against incoming ballistic missiles. So first of all, that was extraordinarily difficult, but it did develop a lot of core fundamental technologies and demonstrations that showed a laser weapon system can be put together. You can do acquisition, tracking, pointing a laser beam, as well as delivering a lethal laser beam to a target, like a boost phase ballistic missile on the airborne laser program. The issue, though, was that those systems were basically just too big, literally. They were physically too big to really be deployed in the tactical environment on a truck or on an airplane, and even on a ship without taking up large portions of that ship. Even though the systems were possible, the irony was that the laser technology wasn't there yet to make a small enough, powerful enough laser to be tactically relevant. Well, now the threat landscape also started to change, and we went from a strategic defense to a tactical defense. The threats today are really evolving. We're talking now about swarms of low-cost, low-capability threats like armed UAVs or large quantities of mortars or rocket barrages. Those systems are shorter range, and many of the systems are not sophisticated, meaning traditionally sophisticated countermeasures like jamming and redirecting and things like that don't work. Like, for instance, a mortar does not have a guidance system on it, so there's not something you can easily do to defend against a mortar. And the timeline of a mortar shot is very short, so you need to react extraordinarily quickly and be able to defend in a very short period of time. So the threat landscape is evolved. And then in the technological space, there were two revolutions that really started to take place. The first was fiber optic telecommunications. That's relevant to directed energy. Don't forget that phrase. All of a sudden, in the 90s, billions and billions of dollars started to pour into the development of fiber optic communications equipment. How to make the optical fiber, how to pull kilometers and kilometers of it with high purity, how to make high-speed electronics to be able to do communications, semiconductor diode lasers to send the data down the fibers. The whole industrial infrastructure for that capability started to really be built out. Then the bubble burst in the early 2000s, and a number of the companies that were in that space began looking for new markets that this fiber optic, fiber laser technology actually could scale in power to hundreds of watts to kilowatts of optical power. And what we found, we meaning the community, was that you could do a whole bunch of industrial applications using fiber laser technology and very cost effectively. And what I mean by that, this man says, is mainly cutting, welding, and drilling. So all of a sudden, all sheet metal that's cut for home appliances and so forth was starting to be cut by high power fiber lasers of the kilowatt type power levels. All of the microelectronics and iPhones and so forth were starting to be drilled, and the touch screens were being scribed, and all this whole industrial space opened up. And the reason was that these fiber lasers were very efficient at converting electrical power to optical power. The beam quality that came out of the fiber laser, meaning the ability for that beam to be focusable, to provide a high intensity spot to do things like melt metal and drill holes, the beam quality was very high. So all of a sudden, the industrial space really opened up, and the development of high power fiber lasers really took off. That was particularly interesting, except for the fact that the power out of a fiber laser doesn't scale to a weapons class. It's one thing to cut metal that's centimeters away, and it's another thing to take out a mortar at 2 kilometers. So the innovation that changed the game in the last 5 years or so, Lockheed Martin was a real leader, or the leader in this innovation, and the innovation involved bringing together the technologies from fiber optic communications and the technologies of high power lasers for industrial applications to figure out a way to scale fiber lasers to weapons class power. The way that's done is, instead of just building a single laser at 50 kilowatts or 100 kilowatts or something like that, we're actually taking individual fiber lasers and then combining the outputs of the beams into a single high power beam, and we do that using a technique they call spectral beam combination. Fundamentally, what they do was we took something, if you're familiar with the wavelength division multiplexing in telecommunications, how to break up the spectrum that's available to you into many different laser lines, and then send all that light down a fiber to increase your communications bandwidth. So all of a sudden, we took a large number of fiber laser channels, all closely spaced in wavelength or in frequency, and then by reflecting those beams off an object, we could call it a grating, or you can think in your mind of it like a prism. The beams all combine into a single output beam. Patty always loves this analogy I use, which is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon record cover shown here. It's more than just laser power that's important. It's the ability to focus that beam for that beam to be able to propagate over a long distance, stay tightly focused. And of course, in the weapon system, it's important that you're able to do acquisition tracking and line of sight stabilization to keep the spot on the soft zone of the target. The fiber laser technology is also, as I mentioned, the most efficient at converting electric power to laser light. So all of a sudden, that meant that the platform demands, whether you're on a ship, a truck, or on an airplane, or being able to provide power and then cooling is minimized. It's certainly not zero, and we're talking about 30 to 35% efficiency at converting electric power into a usable laser beam. That may not sound that great to you, but compared to old solid-state laser technology, which was more like 10%, it's a big, big deal. So as this world is changing at record pace, I'll continue to report on some of the more unique and lesser-known technologies that are available to keep you abreast of what is happening on a wider scope in the world, so you can be best prepared to make sound decisions with a variety of knowledge. On a personal level, I've always thought that just like the combustion engine seems long outdated, so too are lead bullets. A recharging energy laser handheld weapon seems a lot more effective than a handful of brass, and how cool would that be that we'd actually see Star Wars lightsabers in our lifetime? Stay tuned. And today's High Canyon country happenings and information. And if you're on Facebook, you may already have known this, but reported in the Journal with this photo. The official first bundle of joy for 2021 at Southwest Memorial Hospital was born into a Dove Creek family on January 5th. Chelsea Leppert gave birth to Samuel Chanson Jude Montgomery about 6:25 a.m. on Tuesday. The 4-pound, 15-ounce baby boy is, quote, healthy and handsome, she said on Tuesday. Quote, I was not thinking of it at the time, but having the first baby of the year is an extra bonus, Leppert said. He's not a crier, and he's making lots of little noises. The baby was born earlier than expected, she said, and came into the world quickly with labor lasting just a few hours. Quote, I was shopping the day before and had the urge to push. I knew then he wanted to be born, said Leppert, age 21. About 1 a.m. that night, her husband, Charles Joseph Montgomery V, drove her to Southwest Memorial in Cortez from Dove Creek. Quote, he was trying not to speed, and I told him we were going to make it, Leppert said. We checked in around 3 a.m., and Sam arrived a few hours later. I'm exhausted. The staff was really sweet and caring. We are all super excited. Mom and baby are healthy, said registered nurse Ren Smith, who assisted with the delivery. Quote, he looks good in his onesie, which says New Year's baby, and is about to have his first bath. The new baby is being adopted by his fraternal grandparents, Julia and Joseph Montgomery IV, also of Dove Creek. Leppert said that the decision was made together by the extended family. She and her husband have another young child and took a financial hit and job loss because of the pandemic. Quote, it has been tough to make ends meet. I grew up with the same history, being raised by my grandparents, and it was the best life I could have had, Leppert said. Julia and Joseph Montgomery are, quote, overjoyed to adopt Samuel, and it has been a long dream of theirs to raise another child. Quote, I hope he grows up knowing how much he is loved. He will be amazing and comes from a long legacy of good, strong men, said Julia, who is a second-grade teacher in Dove Creek. Her husband is a retired oil field worker. Having Samuel grow up in rural Dove Creek is ideal, Julia said, because he can grow up with friends throughout the school years and be supported by the traditional values of a small farming town. It is like a big family here. Everyone looks out for everyone, she said. Leppert plans to stay involved in Sam's life and feels he has a bright future. Quote, I hope he does not grow up too sheltered and wants to explore and learn as much as he can, she said. The family put a lot of thought into the child's name. Samuel Chanson Jude Montgomery is a combination of Hebrew and French words and translates to, quote, because I asked the Lord for him, a song of praise for this strong man. Congratulations to the family and all of those having children in the new year. To catch the program online, visit our Facebook page, which is DCTV Daily News, or also online on YouTube. Both you can follow and subscribe to easily and join in on the conversation. Again, this is your local community TV station, so if you have something you would like to share, contact us. The email is dcbnnews@gmail.com or call 970-677-4119. Thanks for tuning in to DCTV Daily News. If you like the program, please do like and follow us on Facebook and share it with your friends and family. This has been a production of DCTV for the DCTV Daily News program out of Dove Creek, Colorado, USA. I'm Kendra Cook. Be well and keep thinking.